When making jambalaya, I usually start with about 1.5 cups, like just a regular kitchen mug, mug and a half. So the night before you have to soak it in water. Whoop! Soak it in water, and that's the first step, is just soaking the garbanzo beans, or the chickpeas. So you let the chickpeas soak overnight, and tomorrow we'll boil them. Okay, so this just kind of shows how I have it set up here. I have my 1.5 cups, or coffee mug and a half of chickpeas boiling in here, and usually that takes about an hour to get them soft. I have my mug and a half of rice boiling in the rice cooker, and I have my 6 cloves of garlic and ginger just on really low heat there, and I just want them to kind of sweat out. So then basically when the chickpeas are soft, and when the rice is done, and it doesn't have to be at exact same time, I dump those into this pan, and you could use a George Foreman grill if you did a larger load, and then I just add the spice and basically just stir it and keep it on low heat, and that's it. Okay, so you can see I have the chickpeas. Just kind of dump them in here. You could dump in the rice first, it's not really that big of a deal. And then I've had the rice here, just kind of sitting with the cord unplugged. It was already cooked, I just let it sit for a while. I find that seems to let it come out of the pot a little easier. Anyway, so maybe I'll just use a spatula here, and I'll need okay, and just gonna kind of dump this in here. And I knew it was going to be, pushing it in terms of space. It's, just with the 1.5 mugs of rice and 1.5 mugs of chickpeas. I do find, you can see how easy that rice came out. I found since I started letting the rice sit after it cooks, just, turn the power off and just let it sit in the pot. It seems to just, I don't know what it does. Maybe it's something with the liquid condenses around the edges or something, but it seems to come out super easy, where when I used to just try to take it out right away, it would stick to the sides, which wasn't good. This came out pretty easy, so anyway, you get the idea. So once it gets to this point, probably would work a little better if I didn't have such a big amount in this pan, but I do. So I'm just going to you're just trying to stir the spice through it, and keep the heat on low, stir the spice through it. And you don't really want it to get hard at the bottom, so you just keep stirring it, turning it over, stirring it, turning it over. Okay, I might even turn it on lower heat, so I'm really on a 2 for heat. It's not a race to cook this fast or something. Just kind of stir it in. Oop, accident. That's what can happen with a when you're using your challenge for space, this type of a pan. I used to use a George Foreman grill, which worked really well, and that can work well. You can just cook it on there, and then you'll be able to cook more, maybe. A bigger amount. You just keep, turning it over. Now at this point, you can kind of just leave it, but you should probably come and stir it once in a while. And the longer you leave it, sometimes gives the flavors more time to work in. Like right now, it probably wouldn't be that flavorful, but after a couple hours, it'd probably be pretty good, or maybe an hour. And you just once in a while, you maybe stir it. So, anyway, I think at this point, often I'll just leave the lid on, and I'll put it on real low heat, and I'll just kind of let it cook like that for a while to work the flavors in. Now I've taken the lid off here, and you can see kind of how it is. Like from time to time you just stir it, and you're just trying to stir those spices in. It's probably actually fine to eat right now, but I'm probably going to leave it for a bit longer, and I'll just maybe turn the heat on a bit lower. And you're just trying to turn it over. Sometimes I do add more spices, you know, if it's going to sit for a while longer, but I think I added a lot this time, so I'm just kind of going to let it kind of sit. There we go. Anyway, you can just keep stirring it up, you know. Okay. And I think what I'm going to do, you don't want it to dump over the side, obviously, but stir it up. Just going to put the lid back on. I'm going to lower the heat even lower and just let it sit for another, who knows, maybe another hour. Well, the jambalaya, it is cooked, and I also let it sit for an hour just after on really low heat, just so the, you know, spices could kind of work themselves into it for a little longer. So just on low heat. You want a very flavorful, I like a very flavorful jambalaya. So now, what I do usually, for my lunches for the week, I just kind of scoop it in here to these types of containers. It's good for making a litterless lunch. I find I can make this on a Sunday, and you might make enough lunches for most of the week. You know, I'm aiming to have 4 out of this, and I might have a little some of it right now just for something to eat. What I like about it is, you know, it's very inexpensive to make. It also is nutritious, like you're getting rice and beans, which is a protein, and you can also substitute in quinoa for the rice. You know, if you want to switch up, you can switch the grain up if you wanted. You could even switch up the instead of chickpeas, you could use something else. You could use kidney beans or whatever. You know, you can make it a little bit different each time. You can switch up the spices every time. You don't have to use the same spices. You could use, you know, cayenne, Cajun. You could use curry. You could use Jamaican spice, or anyway. So I just keep. What else could you use? Cumin. You could use coriander, and there might even be something I haven't thought up yet. You can make this with garlic. Like I usually use about 6 cloves of garlic, and I use about, you know, some ginger too. But you don't need those things. You can still make it without those things. You know, you just want something to give it a little bit of flavor. And you can always make more or make less. The main rules of it are you want about as much chickpeas as rice, but you know, you could have more. You could have more chickpeas than rice. It wouldn't really. Or you could have less. It still would work. Like either way, it's fine. It just would mean you'd have fewer chickpeas or more chickpeas, or more rice or less rice. And you also have to consider how big is your pan to cook it in. You know, like I was really pushing it here. I had about 1 coffee cup and a half of rice and 1 coffee cup and a half of chickpeas, and it was overflowing this frying pan. So, but that's going to make, 4 pretty easy lunches throughout the week. I have before made it on maybe like a George Foreman grill, one of those big grills, and you can make more on there, and it'll instead of making 4 lunches, you might make 6 lunches or something. I just find making 4 is good because by the 4th day, I mean, it's still fresh, but if it went for a week, it might not be fresh. So anyway, that's probably, that's pretty good right there. So you can see I got 4 pretty good lunches out of it and a little extra. And I'm going to show you how you can garnish this to be really flavorful. Usually what I do is I just put it like this in the fridge. Put the lid on it, put it like this in the fridge, and then and I garnish it the day of. Like say I'm going to make my lunch for Wednesday, Tuesday night, I take this out of the fridge, and then I put some toppings on, and some toppings I might even add in the day of. So in a second I'll show how to garnish this. Okay, now just going to show you how you can top this jambalaya. Like you can add some avocado, that's a great topping, some cheese. Sometimes it's good to add the cheese when it's in the pan because it will melt it. A lot of anything goes here. I mean, you can add some whatever you have really. Have some dill pickle chopped up and some cucumber. I'm going to add that. One other thing that works really well is kimchi. I don't have any here today, but I do sometimes add kimchi. Love to add some sauerkraut in there. Gives it a little. Sauerkraut's great because it gives it some moisture. Especially when it's maybe just you can mix that right in. Gives it some moisture and it just mixes really well. Also, I like to add a little bit of salsa. Just a little bit. You can always put this in a wrap too. You could put it in a wrap or a fajita, or you could put it in, what do you call, any kind of flatbread or anything you want. I also like a little bit of hummus. I'm going to put some hummus on the side here. Some hummus. And then once I've got everything in there on top for even just more flavor, any kind of salad dressing's good. I have some creamy cucumber, which is one I really like, but Renee's dressing's really good. Just put it on top. Anyway, so that's how you. So usually when I top it for the day, I usually put my sauerkraut separate and just mix it in. I might put my. Sometimes I eat it without cheese. Is another thing. I don't always put cucumber in. Usually put pickle, sauerkraut, salsa, and dressing on top. But you can add whatever you have or whatever you want. Nutritious and delicious, and also vegetarian, right? So it could be vegan or vegetarian, and it's definitely hearty. Like you'll get a lot of energy out of it, and it's healthy. You'll find it digests really easily, and you'll feel great.